My stepson beat me with a broom. My wife laughed. Then I exposed them both. I was in the shower, trying to rinse dried blood from my scalp. Not metaphorically. Literal blood. My blood. From my head. Because my stepson accidentally hit me with a broomstick over the last slice of pizza. And as I stood there, shivering under the water, trying to understand how I got here, how I became the joke of this house, I heard her voice behind the shower curtain, whispering, "You flinched too early. Maybe next time, he'll aim for your throat." That was my wife. The woman I married 5 years ago. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My lips were trembling from the cold and the rage. The water ran red for a moment, then pink, then clear. That was last night. This morning, my phone was full of missed calls. From her parents, from her son. They were begging me to come back. Let me backtrack. Because to understand how we got to broomsticks and whispered threats, you have to know how I got roped into this nightmare of a family. It started with love, obviously. Doesn't it always? Melissa wasn't just beautiful. She was magnetic. The kind of woman who could make an entire room lean toward her without saying a word. We met at a coffee shop. She was sipping tea and typing furiously into her laptop, and I said something stupid about Shakespeare. She laughed. I fell. 3 months later, we were talking rings. 6 months later, I was meeting her kid, Ethan, 11 years old. Big eyes, a quiet stare, and a silence that felt like he was sizing me up constantly. Melissa told me he was just introverted, that he needed time, that he missed his dad. What she didn't say, his dad had been in prison for 3 years for assault. What she didn't say, Ethan had a history of school suspensions, a record of violent outbursts, and had already seen 3 therapists by the time he was 10. What she didn't say, I was walking into a house with a ticking time bomb and no instruction manual. The first time Ethan threw something at me, it was a plastic fork. Dinner. I made a joke about the pasta being al dente, and he whipped the fork across the table like a ninja star. It hit me in the eye. I laughed it off, thinking maybe it was just a reflex. Melissa? She smiled. Oh, come on, she said. He's just playing. Right. The second time, it was a shoe. The third time, it was my laptop. Still, I stayed. Because love, right? Because maybe he just needed structure. Maybe he needed a stable male figure. Maybe, God help me, I thought I could save them. Fast forward. 2 years in, I was living in a house that no longer felt like mine. Melissa stopped calling me babe. Started calling me him. As in, don't mind him, he's just sensitive. Ethan got bigger, stronger, louder, more clever with his accidents. Bruises on my arms from the dog leash he left at the top of the stairs. Cracked phone screen from when he tripped into me and elbowed it out of my hand. But it was the broomstick that did it. That was the line. Last night, we ordered pizza. Just the 3 of us. I'd been working overtime all week. Providing. Paying the mortgage. Covering Melissa's car payments because she lost her job. Again. I was exhausted. I just wanted to eat and sleep. There were 3 slices left. I took one. Ethan walked in, stared at the box, then stared at my plate. You ate it, he said, voice flat. There's still 2 left. He walked out of the room. I thought that was the end of it. 30 seconds later, something slammed into the back of my head. I hit the floor hard. Blacked out for maybe 2 seconds. When I came to, Ethan was standing there holding a broomstick. Melissa walked in, looked at me, looked at her son, and then she laughed. I told you to wait until he was sitting down. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't check the bleeding. Didn't even blink. I stood up, dazed. Blood in my hair. Vision fuzzy. She got close. Whispered it in my ear like a lullaby. Next time, don't flinch. Maybe he'll aim for your throat. I locked myself in the bathroom. Stood under the water for an hour, shaking. And this morning? Missed calls. Texts. Please come back. We need to talk. It wasn't that serious. He's just a kid. My phone buzzed again. Don't do anything stupid. I stared at the screen. Funny. They thought I was the unstable one. But here's what they didn't know. I had recorded it. The hit. The whisper. Everything. My phone was in my pocket when it happened. It caught the sound, the impact, her voice. And now, I wasn't just some pathetic husband trying to play dad. I was a man with evidence. And a choice. I could walk. I could burn the whole thing down. Or I could do something worse. The thing about slow burns? You don't feel them until your skin's already scorched. That's what it felt like, being married to Melissa. It didn't start with violence. Or cruelty. It started with requests. Innocent at first. Babe, Can you cover dinner? I left my card at home. Mind spotting me for gas? I'll Venmo you later. Later never came. But I didn't care. I was in love. Or something like it. 6 months in, I was paying her rent. 9 months in, I was paying for Ethan's private school because public school just wasn't working. A year in, she moved into my house and brought nothing with her except 3 suitcases, a teenage boy, and a dog that hated me. And I let her. I thought that's what love was. Sacrifice. But I didn't realize then, she was keeping score, just not the way I was. Every time I gave something, she took it as proof she could take more. It was little things, at first. She never said thank you. She'd roll her eyes if I asked for help with anything. But the worst part? She weaponized Ethan like a tiny, silent enforcer. If I said no to something, suddenly Ethan was depressed. If I complained about the bills, Ethan would start slamming doors, breaking things, and Melissa would sigh dramatically. See what you've done now? Once, I asked her why Ethan didn't have chores. She stared at me and said, "You think you're his dad now?" I didn't answer. I just picked up his dirty laundry off the floor and kept cleaning. Like an idiot. You know what no one tells you about being the step-parent of a manipulative teenager? They're smarter than you think. They know exactly how to walk the line, how to make everything look like an accident. I still remember the first time he made me bleed. It was a ceramic mug. He accidentally dropped it as I walked by. It shattered against my shin. Melissa didn't even look up from her phone. "Maybe don't sneak up on people," she muttered. I stood there, holding my leg, glass embedded in my skin, and thought, this isn't normal. This can't be normal. But then I thought, he's just a kid. And I let it go. That was the pattern. I got hurt. I let it go. I paid for things. I let it go. I was humiliated, disrespected, ignored. I let it go. Until last month. It started with a credit card bill. I noticed a $412 charge to some random online clothing store. Melissa didn't shop online. At least not there. I asked her about it. She blinked. Oh, that must have been Ethan. He needed new shoes. I checked. It wasn't shoes. It was a gaming console and 2 headsets. I asked why he needed 2. She shrugged. Probably for a friend. I said, "Melissa, we need to set limits. He can't just." She stood up, ice cold. "You're making it really hard to want to be around you." I stopped mid-sentence. Because that was the threat. Not, "Let's talk about this." Not, "Sorry, we'll fix it." It was always this unspoken promise. If you push too hard, we'll freeze you out. And I believed it. Because that was the one thing I was terrified of. Being alone. Again. But now? Now I wasn't afraid. Because now I had proof. Now I had audio of Melissa laughing while I bled on the kitchen tiles. Now I had a time-stamped video of her son smashing a broomstick over my head. And that changed everything. That morning, I didn't respond to any of their texts. I booked a hotel room under a different name. I put in for 2 weeks of PTO. And then, I drove to a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. My college roommate, Mark. A man who specialized in family law, and more importantly, revenge executed legally. I didn't even need to explain everything. I just showed him the audio clip. He listened, paused, and said 5 words. "You want to ruin them?" I stared out the window for a long second. Then nodded. "Yes." "And Mark?" He smiled like a man handed gasoline and a match. Mark leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. "Before we go nuclear, let's get everything. Dates. Documents. Screenshots. You want this clean." Clean. God, I didn't even know what clean felt like anymore. I had bruises on my ribs from where Ethan shoved me into the fridge last week. A scratch across my wrist from the dog trained, by the way, to only growl at me. And a savings account that looked like it had been hit by a grenade. But I nodded. Clean. And Mark got to work. First thing he did. Background check. Melissa. Turns out, I wasn't husband number 1. Not even husband number 2. I was number 3. 3 marriages in 10 years. Each one ending the same way. Financial ruin. Restraining orders. A smear campaign so vicious it made the men look like the abusers. And here's the kicker. Each one walked away broke. One of them even left the country. She called them all the same thing in court. Unstable. Controlling. Manipulative. Sound familiar? Yeah. Mark looked up from his laptop and gave me a long, slow blink. Dude, she's a textbook predator. I already knew that. What I didn't know, what punched me in the chest, was this. She had a pattern. She targeted lonely men with money. She moved fast. Got pregnant or moved in within months. Played the sweet, struggling single mom. Then, she weaponized the kid. Every time. That night, I went home. Not to Melissa. To my parents. My mom opened the door and stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. She hadn't seen me in months. Melissa said they were toxic. Said they judged her. Said I didn't need them. I believed her. God, I was such an idiot. My mom made tea. My dad sat in silence. And I told them everything. The broom. The whisper. The money. The bruises. My mom cried. My dad didn't. He just stood up, walked to the garage, and came back with a safe box. Inside? Old birthday cards. Pictures. Letters I'd sent from college. And a folded sheet of paper I didn't recognize. It was a printed email. From Melissa. To my dad. 2 years ago. We'd appreciate it if you respected our boundaries and stopped contacting us. Your constant interference is putting strain on our relationship. We're doing fine without you. My throat closed. She cut me off from them. On purpose. And they let her because they thought I wanted it. That was the moment. The moment I realized. I wasn't just being used. I was being isolated. On purpose. So no one could pull me out. So I'd keep paying. Keep providing. Keep bleeding. Alone. But I wasn't alone anymore. Mark had already started gathering everything. Bank statements. Video files. The audio recording from the night of the broomstick. We were building a case. Not for divorce. No. For custody. Because Melissa wasn't legally allowed to block me from seeing Ethan. He wasn't my biological kid, but she had added me to emergency school forms as stepfather/guardian. That meant something. And if I could prove emotional and physical instability in the home, it could be enough. But here's where things got dark. Mark found something else. Something I wasn't prepared for. Melissa's ex? The one who moved to Canada? He didn't leave because he was broke. He left because she accused him of hurting Ethan. Took him to court. Nearly got him put in prison. But guess what? The judge dismissed it. No evidence. No bruises. No history of violence. You know what the judge wrote in the closing notes? Plaintiff's testimony inconsistent. Child's statements appear rehearsed. Defendant appears credible. I read that line 5 times. Rehearsed. She trained Ethan. Taught him what to say. To ruin someone. And now? Now she had a new video. Mine. Where Ethan hit me. Where she laughed. That changed everything. Because now, I wasn't the one being accused. Now I was the one with the ammo. Mark leaned forward and said, if we time this right, we can flip the whole narrative. You're not just a victim. You're a whistleblower. I didn't say anything for a long time. Then I looked up and said, let's ruin her. And Mark? He smiled like the devil himself. You ever see a spider lay a web? It doesn't chase. Doesn't fight. It just waits. And that's exactly what I did. I stopped reacting. Stopped arguing. Stopped texting back. And started watching. Because now, I knew something Melissa didn't. I wasn't trying to win her back. I was trying to expose her. First step? Let her feel safe. I texted her 2 words. I'm sorry. That's it. 30 seconds later, 3 dots appeared. Then a flood of messages. I knew you'd come around. Ethan didn't mean it. We miss you. And then the kicker. Can you help with the car payment this month? I smiled. There it was. She still thought I was useful. Perfect. I told her I needed time to think things through. Told her I was staying with a friend. Told her I still loved her. She bought it all. She even started sending selfies again. Pouty lips. Sad eyes. Lying face. I screenshotted everyone. Every word. Every, please, baby. You know what else I did? I turned on her location sharing from her Google account. She'd left her Gmail open on my iPad a month ago. Never logged out. Amateur. Within 2 days, I had everything. Turns out, while I was bleeding on the bathroom floor, she was texting her ex. Not husband number 2. Not husband number 1. A new one. Some gym guy named Trevor. Shirtless profile pic. Big truck. Tiny vocabulary. They'd been talking for weeks. She told him I was unstable. Said she feared for her safety. Said she might have to call the cops soon. Classic projection. She even sent him a picture of the bruise I got from Ethan's broomstick and claimed I had done it to her. I nearly threw my phone, but I didn't, because this wasn't rage anymore. This was documentation. This was leverage. Next move? The school. Remember how she listed me as emergency guardian? Well, I called the front desk, asked to speak to the school counselor. Her name was Ms. Carter. Sweet voice. Professional. I told her I had concerns about Ethan's home environment. that I had evidence of emotional instability, neglect, and possible coaching of false narratives. And you know what she said? You're the third person to raise concerns this semester. Wait, what? Yeah. Apparently, Ethan had been acting out in class, getting aggressive, withdrawn, once called a girl a worthless parasite. His teacher had filed a behavioral incident report. Twice. Melissa never told me. Of course not. That would make her look like a bad mom. But now the school was listening. They asked if I could send documentation. I said, gladly. I uploaded everything that night. Then, I went quiet. No texts. No calls. No online presence. Just silence. You know how manipulators react to silence? They spiral. 3 days in, Melissa showed up at my parents' house. Unannounced. Hair messy. Eyes wide. Arms crossed like she was ready for a courtroom. My mom answered the door. Melissa didn't even greet her. Just blurted out. Where is he? My mom smiled sweetly and said, resting. Melissa scoffed. He's my husband. My mom tilted her head. Is he? Then shut the door. God, I wish I could have seen her face. Instead, I watched the Ring camera replay 5 times. Pure gold. That night, I got a voicemail. Her voice was shaking. You need to come home. Things are falling apart. Ethan won't talk to me. The school called. I don't know what you told them, but this isn't fair. She paused. Then came the line that told me everything I needed to know. You're ruining everything. Why are you doing this to me? To me. Not once did she ask if I was okay. Not once did she mention the bruise, or the blood, or the years of financial drain. She just wanted control back. And she was losing it. And you know the best part? I hadn't said a single lie. I hadn't edited a single file. I hadn't threatened her once. All I did was tell the truth. And let the cracks show. It was the first time in this entire nightmare that someone looked me in the eye and said my name. Not him. Not that guy. Not Melissa's husband. Just, Mr. Blake, we believe you. That came from Erin, a caseworker from Child Protective Services. She sat across from me in a clean, quiet room with a folder in front of her. Inside were screenshots, audio files, photos, my bruises, my silence, my truth. I expected doubt. I expected the raised eyebrow, the neutral stare, the "are you sure you're not exaggerating" look I'd gotten too many times before. But she just nodded, took notes, asked specific questions. And then, with no drama, no hesitation, she closed the folder and said, You did the right thing. Now let us do ours. I didn't know what to say. A week later, I got an official letter. Ethan was removed from Melissa's custody for evaluation. It wasn't permanent. Not yet. But the school had filed a formal concern with CPS. They cited increasing behavioral incidents and concerns regarding home stability. Melissa didn't take it well. First came the texts. You're tearing this family apart. He's just a kid. He didn't mean it. You're making things worse. Then came the guilt. You're hurting Ethan, not me. And then the rage. If you don't take it back, I swear I'll ruin you. She said that after I was the one bleeding on the kitchen floor. Classic. But what she didn't know, I'd already filed. With Mark's help, I'd submitted a formal request to limit her access to Ethan until the investigation was over. Not a custody grab. Not revenge. Just safety. Just space. Just logic. And you know what the court did? They accepted the hearing request. Because of the recording. Because of the school reports. Because of her history. That was the wild card I didn't even expect. Melissa had 2 ex-husbands. One of them had vanished across the border years ago, labeled a monster by her. But Mark? Mark dug deeper. Turns out that man had nearly been jailed after she accused him of abusing Ethan. But the case was dropped. Why? Child's testimony appeared rehearsed. Mother's statements inconsistent. Defendant deemed credible. That's what the judge wrote. Rehearsed. She taught her son what to say. To destroy someone. And now? Now I had the proof. Not just that she lied, but that she was repeating the same pattern. I went back to my parents' house. I hadn't been there in over a year. Melissa told me they were toxic, that they didn't respect our boundaries. She even blocked their numbers on my phone. Said I needed to protect my peace. I believed her. Like an idiot. But that night, my mom opened the door and froze. Like she was seeing a ghost. She hugged me before I could even say anything. My dad just stood there in silence. Then walked into the garage. When he came back, he was holding a locked box. Inside? Photos. Letters. Birthday cards. in one printed email. From Melissa. Sent to my dad. 2 years ago. We'd appreciate if you respected our space and stopped reaching out. Your judgment is damaging our progress. She cut me off from them. Without me knowing. She isolated me. On purpose. That night I sat in my childhood bedroom and realized something that made my stomach turn. Melissa never hit me. Not physically. She never had to. She just made sure I had nowhere else to go. And then, she let her son finish the job. But now people were listening. The school. The caseworker. The courts. Even Ethan. Yeah, Ethan. I didn't expect to hear from him. He was placed temporarily in a stabilization program, neutral space. No mom. No me. Just therapy. Structure. Quiet. Then one day, I got a letter. Handwritten. Shaky. Uncertain. They said I could write. I don't know what to say. Mom said you were going to take me. Then she said you wanted someone else to. I don't know who's lying. But when I lived with you, it was quieter. I read that line over and over. It was quieter. That's all he said. But it was everything. A few days later, I was invited to a supervised meeting. With Ethan. He sat across the table, eyes down, hands fidgeting. The social worker asked if we wanted time alone. I said yes. And when it was just the two of us, I looked him in the eyes and said, I'm not here to punish you. He didn't speak. So I added, but I can't go back to what it was. And I won't let you go back to it either. He nodded. No argument. No excuses. Just a quiet, reluctant nod. The first honest thing he'd done in years. It wasn't closure. It wasn't healing. But it was the first step. And this time, I wasn't the one walking alone. The funny thing about manipulators? They don't break. They self-destruct. And Melissa? She wasn't falling apart. She was imploding, piece by piece. Silently, violently, gloriously. It started with the money. Her credit cards got declined. Her parents refused to wire her anything. Her job applications kept getting rejected, probably because her last employer listed frequent emotional outbursts under reason for termination. I didn't do any of that. I didn't have to. She burned every bridge all by herself. And now? There was no one left to blame. So, she did what manipulators always do when the world turns cold. She played the victim. Facebook post. A black and white photo of her and Ethan from 2 years ago. Caption. Some people are trying to take away the only thing I live for. Please pray for us. The comments? Oh, they were brutal. At first, it was the usual support. Stay strong, mama. You'll get through this. But then, screenshots started surfacing. Someone posted a clip of her voice saying, maybe next time, aim for his throat. I never shared that publicly. But someone did. Maybe Ethan. Maybe her brother. Maybe karma. Either way, the comment section turned into a funeral pyre. Next came the calls. First to my parents. Then to mutual friends. Then finally to me. I didn't pick up. But I listened to every voicemail. You're ruining my life. You lied to everyone. How could you turn Ethan against me? And finally, you loved me once. Yeah, I did. But I also used to think pain meant progress. I used to think staying quiet was strength. I used to think if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, she'd become someone else. She didn't. But I did. I kept getting updates from the caseworker. Ethan was stabilizing. He was in therapy. The new counselor said he was opening up, slowly, but said one thing over and over. He never yelled at me. Not once. That stuck. Because it was true. I never yelled. I never screamed. I never raised a hand. I just endured. And now? That quiet was my greatest weapon. 2 weeks later, Melissa's parents asked for a meeting. Not with her. With me. We met at a small diner just off the highway. They looked older than I remembered. Tired. Like they'd finally stopped pretending. Her mom spoke first. We know now. Just that. For words. And then tears. Not loud, ugly crying. Just a quiet unraveling of guilt. Her father handed me a check. It's not much. But we know you covered more than we ever realized. I didn't take it. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I didn't need their money. I just needed them to see. Melissa, meanwhile, was spiraling. She tried showing up at the school, demanding to see Ethan. They turned her away. She screamed in the parking lot. Security had to escort her out. I got an email about it the next morning. The principal's words? Mr. Blake, thank you for stepping in when you did. He's safe now. The woman who once whispered threats through a shower curtain now couldn't get past the front desk of her son's school. The same woman who used to laugh while I bled? Now sobbing to voicemail inboxes that no one opened. And me? I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even satisfied. I was just free. The court date was getting closer. Mark said we had more than enough to get Ethan placed under joint supervision at minimum. Maybe even full custody if Melissa didn't show up. And let's be real. She wouldn't. Her power wasn't in facing people. It was in controlling them from the shadows. And now? Those shadows were gone. The courtroom smelled like coffee and stale nerves. Mark sat beside me, calm, focused, flipping through paperwork like he'd done this 100 times. Because he had. I hadn't slept. Not because I was afraid. Because I was ready. Melissa walked in 15 minutes late. Her hair was done, makeup on point, heels sharp. She looked like she was walking into a casting call, not a custody hearing. She smiled at the judge. Didn't even glance at me. But I saw it, the twitch in her jaw, the crack behind the lashes. She was unraveling, just slower now. The judge was a woman in her 60s. Gray blazer, wire glasses, absolutely zero tolerance for drama. This is a hearing regarding temporary custody and visitation rights involving minor Ethan Ross. Is that correct? Mark stood. Yes, Your Honor. We are requesting that visitation be suspended due to documented emotional instability and patterns of coercion by the biological mother. Melissa's attorney stood too. Some guy in a rumpled suit who looked like he met her on Craigslist. Your Honor, this is nothing more than a bitter ex trying to weaponize the legal system against my client. The judge didn't blink. You'll both get your turn. Mr. Blake, approached the stand. I stood, walked slowly, sat down, and for the first time in years, I wasn't nervous speaking in front of people. Because this time, I had nothing to hide. Mark started with the basics. My financial records, photos of bruises, screenshots of text messages, then the audio, the broomstick, the whisper, the laugh. We played it aloud in the courtroom. The moment it ended, the silence was suffocating. Melissa looked frozen. Her lawyer leaned over and whispered something. She shook her head, panicked. Then came the surprise. The judge asked if Ethan was prepared to testify. We had no idea they'd even allow it. But the social worker nodded. And just like that, Ethan was brought into the room. Hair combed, dressed simply. He looked calm. Not like the kid who used to throw plates or scream threats behind a locked door. He sat, fidgeted once, then looked straight at the judge. Do you understand why you're here today? He nodded. Do you want to speak about what life was like before? He paused, then said something that made everyone in the room stop breathing. I remember everything. Melissa's head snapped toward him. He didn't flinch. I remember the night he got hurt. I remember Mom laughing. I remember her telling me what to say in case someone asked. The judge leaned forward. Has she asked you to lie before? He nodded again. Slow. Ashamed. Yes. About my dad. About him. He looked at me. About everyone. Then his voice cracked. But he never hit me. He never yelled. He just left. And finally, he whispered. That was the safest I ever felt. The courtroom stayed silent for a long time after that. Melissa didn't speak. Her attorney didn't argue. There was nothing left to say. The judge closed her folder and said, pending final review, custody will remain with Mr. Blake under supervised terms. No unsupervised visitation will be granted to the mother at this time. Bang. Gavel. Done. Melissa stormed out of the courtroom like it owed her something. But no one followed. No one called her name. Not even Ethan. He walked toward me, slowly, cautiously. Then stopped 2 feet away. No hug. No speech. Just, thank you for not giving up on me. That's when I broke. Not out loud. Not in public. Just a quiet collapse behind my ribs. Because I didn't save him. I just stopped letting her break us both. It had been 10 days since the hearing. Ethan was staying with me. Not full custody. Not yet. But enough. Enough to feel the shift in the air. No more broken doors. No more slammed plates. No more walking on eggshells in my own house. He was quiet, but not scared quiet. Just adjusting. Sometimes I caught him staring at the wall, like he was waiting for something to explode. Other times, he followed me into the kitchen and just sat nearby. Didn't speak. Just sat. Like silence was finally a safe place again. Then, on a Tuesday morning, I found him sitting on the couch, phone in hand, completely still. His face was pale. Blank. I didn't ask right away. I just waited. He turned the screen toward me. A message. From Melissa. No greeting. No context. Just this. You're a traitor. You destroyed this family. You'll regret picking him over your own mother. And then, underneath it, you're just like your father. Weak. I saw his hands tremble. Not rage. Not fear. Shame. That's what she always did. Weaponized shame like oxygen. I sat next to him. Quiet. Let the weight settle. Then I asked one thing. Do you want to respond? He didn't move for a few seconds. Then he nodded. Opened a new message. Typed for a long time. Backspaced. Typed again. Then, finally, he sent this. You lied about him. You lied about everything. You told me to hurt people who cared about me. You made me feel like love had rules. It doesn't. He never asked me to choose. You did. And I'm choosing peace. Then he blocked her. Just like that. No tears. No drama. Just closure. The kind she could never give, but he gave himself. That night, I made pasta. Nothing fancy. Just something warm. Ethan walked into the kitchen. Looked at the pot. You made this when I was sick once. I remember. I turned, surprised. He was smiling. Small. Faint. But real. It wasn't that bad, he said. The pasta? No, he said, looking at me. Living here. Back then. And I realized something. He didn't just remember the pain. He remembered the safety too. It had been buried. Under fear. Under shame. Under her. But it was there. That was the real win. Not the courtroom. Not the paperwork. Not the silence I'd fought to protect. The win was him remembering peace. And choosing it. Later that night, I got a notification. A voicemail from a restricted number. I didn't even have to listen. I just deleted it. Because for once, she wasn't the ending of the story. She was just the interruption I finally stopped answering to. 6 months. That's how long it had been since the court ruling. Since Ethan blocked her. Since I stopped waking up with dread in my chest. 6 months of healing. Of rebuilding. Of slowly, carefully, becoming a home again. Ethan started therapy full-time. He started opening up, writing, drawing, asking questions instead of shutting down. One day, he came home with a school project. Topic: what does safety look like? He drew a couch, a bowl of pasta, a phone with no notifications, and a caption that read, "Safety is when you don't have to guess if someone loves you." I didn't cry, but I stared at that page for a long time. That kid, the one who once weaponized silence, is now learning how to speak. That's victory. But of course, Melissa wasn't done. I found out through a friend. Someone texted me. Bro, you need to see what she posted. Facebook. Public. A full essay. Title? My Truth, How the System Stole My Son. She wrote about corruption. About narcissistic abusers. About stepfathers who gaslight children and twist courts. She even posted a photo of Ethan, without permission from when he was 5. Captioned it, "Still waiting for my baby to come home." The comments were a mix of sympathy and silence. But then, someone replied. Not me. Not Mark. Ethan's old teacher. She wrote, "You told us his bruises were from sports. But we know what happened now. Stop playing victim. You're the reason he doesn't come home." Then came another. "You told me his dad abandoned him. He didn't. You just buried the truth." Then another. "You tried this same story with your last husband too. Didn't work then. Not working now. It snowballed." Screenshots. Evidence. People she manipulated years ago, finally speaking up. Her own brother commented, "Take this down. You're not a victim. You're a liar." Within an hour, she deleted the post. Blocked half her contact list. Went silent. Again. I sat with Ethan that night and asked him, "Do you want to talk about it?" He shook his head. Then added, quietly, "I'm not scared of her voice anymore." Weeks passed. The final custody ruling came through. Permanent. Ethan stays with me. Supervised visitation possible, but only if he initiates it. He didn't. He probably never will. And I'm not going to push him. Because I've learned something Melissa never did. Real love never begs. Never manipulates. Never forces. It just shows up. Consistently. Quietly. Like a light that doesn't flicker when the wind blows. A few days ago, I saw Melissa at the grocery store. Hair tied up. Sunglasses on. Pushing a cart with one wheel that kept jamming. She saw me. I saw the flicker of recognition. The reflexive tightening of her jaw. She opened her mouth like she might say something. I didn't stop. I didn't smile. I didn't even flinch. I just walked past her like I would a stranger. Because that's what she is now. Not a threat. Not an enemy. Not even a memory. Just a name I no longer answer to. Ethan turned 18 last week. No balloons. No loud music. Just dinner, his favorite pasta, and a movie we both half-watched while scrolling on our phones. At one point, I looked over and realized. He was smiling. Not laughing. Not pretending. Just smiling. For years, I waited for that moment. The one where he wasn't surviving anymore, he was living. He didn't say much about Melissa these days. And I didn't ask. It wasn't silence out of fear. It was silence born from healing. Some wounds don't need to be picked at to prove they're real. They just need time to close. But every now and then, I'd catch pieces. Moments. Little things he'd say like, "You know, I didn't even realize how tired I was until I wasn't scared all the time." Or, "When she used to yell, I used to imagine I was invisible." He didn't say it for pity. He said it like someone talking about another lifetime. Another version of himself that never made it past the door. He got into college. A local one, just a few hours away. Wants to study psychology. Ironic, huh? He says he wants to help kids who went through what he did. I told him he'd be good at it. He said, "I'll just do what you did." I blinked. What's that? Show up. Not yell. Just stay. That was it. That was the whole philosophy. Not heroic. Not loud. Just there. And it changed his life. On his birthday, he introduced me to a friend as my dad. Not stepdad. Not guardian. Dad. Like it had always been that way. Like there hadn't been blood on a kitchen floor. Like I hadn't almost walked away 100 times. Like the word had been waiting to be used all this time, and now it finally fit. As for Melissa, last I heard, she moved states. Started going by her maiden name again. New Facebook. New boyfriend. New lies, probably. But not our problem. Ethan hasn't reached out. She hasn't tried again. Maybe she finally learned. Or maybe she's just hunting for her next chapter. Either way, we're not in her story anymore. And that's what peace really is. It's not when the storm ends. It's when you stop checking the weather. Sometimes people ask me if I'd do it all over again. The pain, the manipulation, the courtroom, the fear. And the truth is, no, I wouldn't choose that path again. But I'd still choose him. Every time. Because in the end, the woman who tried to ruin me gave me the one person I'll spend the rest of my life protecting. Without guilt. Without fear. Without question.